Hey guys, in today's video, we're going to talk about how to use your wrists in the golf swing. Hey guys, Eric here at the Bethlehem Golf Club. I want to talk to you today about how to use your wrists in the golf swing. Now, before we dive in, two quick things I want to talk to you about. Number one, as most of you know, we have launched our 2-day golf schools. We are booked through the summer, but we do have availability into the fall. If you would love to come to Bethlehem, we would love to have you for our 2-day immersion events. We will put the link in the description down below. These 2-day events really are the best way we know how to take your golf game to the next level. Now, we know not all of you can come see us in person, which is why we built CogornoGolf.com, which is our online community. On the site, there's really guided step-by-step learning. There's access to all of our master classes. We have practice guides, we have quick fix sections, and most important, you get access to our Facebook group as a premium member. In the Facebook group, you can post your swings, get feedback from myself and the members of the group to really guide you, take your game to the next level and expedite that process. Would love to see you as part of our community at CogornoGolf.com. Also, the link will be in the description for that below. Now, in terms of how you use your wrists in the golf swing, we had a couple of videos we made last year and earlier in this year about how to use the wrist. I want to go over some of that stuff, and I want to reiterate a couple things that I think are not completely commonly understood yet for golfers in terms of how the wrists move. And really what I want to talk about here are two main things that I want you guys to understand. And that is, number one, how much you hinge your wrists. So the vertical component of how the wrists work, if we kind of look at the wrist and think about it, that it works in two different ways. Let's say the wrist can hinge or unhinge. Okay, it can hinge up or it can unhinge down. Radial deviation, ulnar deviation. Don't get lost in the things. Hinge up, hinge down. And it can also bow or cup, as people would call it, which would be flexion or extension. So think about it that way. My wrist can go up, they can go down, they can go back, and they can go forward. Let's kind of focus on those pieces. What I want you to understand is as your wrists go up or go down, that also influences whether they go back or forward, meaning how much you hinge or unhinge your wrists is a primary factor in whether your wrist is going to cup, be flat, or bow. And if you've been trying to flatten your left wrist out or have a more bowed wrist, you may have been holding yourself back because of how much you hinge or not hinge. Let me explain what I mean there. When I take my club, let's say I just take it in my left hand first, the thing to understand here first is the more that I hinge, if I'm just in a neutral grip position, the more that I hinge the club up vertically, the more my left wrist goes into cup or extension. I'm going to say that one more time. The more that I hinge the club up vertically, the more my left wrist goes into cup or extension. Now, the opposite of that is true. The more I unhinge my left wrist, the more my left wrist goes towards flat or bowed. So the more I unhinge my left wrist, the more my left wrist goes flat or bowed. Why is that important? What does that mean? If I am during my backswing, let's say I take my normal setup and my left wrist is pretty flat. When I make my backswing, the more that I'm hinging it as I'm making my backswing, if I overhinge it on the way back, or I overhinge it on the way down to try and get some kind of lag angle, that means my left wrist is in all likelihood going to be too cupped. Now, the problem with too much cup, as some of you guys will know, is that it makes the club face too open. Okay, so let's kind of correlate some things here. We said, hey, a lot of hinge probably means more likely that we have too much cup. Too much cup means club face too open. Club face too open probably means balls that go to the right. It probably means over the top downswings. It probably means bad pivots. It probably means no rotation. It probably means no dynamic loft and contact issues. Nothing good in that list from an open club face. So if we kind of connect the dots there, we can say a lot of people in their swing who are trying to hinge too much, in fact, you getting so much hinge may be the root cause of almost all of your problems. Now, fortunately, the opposite part of that is true, which is the less I hinge my wrists, the more my wrist can be towards flat or bowed. Now, unfortunately, golf, there's a lot of micro, and there's typically not a black and white thing. That's not to say everyone washing this should completely unhinge everything, or that everyone watching this should completely hinge everything. You need to know where you're at and how to make those adjustments. That's the point of CogornoGolf.com, so I can help you through those. But I want you to understand how these hinge rates work. Let me give you an illustration from the top of the swing so you can see this. Let's assume that I get up to the top of my swing and I have a flat left wrist. So I'm perfectly flat. And that gives me what you would see as kind of a neutral, let's say a 90-degree angle there like this. If I just add hinge here, what happens to my wrist angle? So I change nothing else. Here's me flat and 90 degrees. If I make this 90 more narrow, what happens to my wrist angle? Goes towards cupped, right? Now, imagine I do the same thing. What if I do that in motion during my downswing? What happens to the shaft when I add hinge and cup? Does it get vertical or does it get horizontal and shallow? It gets vertical. Bad news coming down. Now, what if I do the opposite? What if I'm here and I'm hinged at the top and I unhinge my wrist? Now, what happened to that shaft from down the line? Did that shaft get vertical or did that get more towards shallow? What if I'm in a steep position and I take the hinge out? What happens to the shaft? It goes more towards shallow, okay? Now, again, you need to be able to find a middle ground, but the solution is not to have this thing hinged so much forever. The more you're trying to hinge it on the way down, the more you're cupped, the more you're steep, the more the face is open. Now, should you go up to the top and feel like you completely throw your angles? Well, if you keep the left wrist flat and you have a good pivot, that would be better off than the other angle, right? If I was here at the top and I had this unhinged, let's say, and I shallowed the shaft, but I paired it with a bowed or flex left wrist, I could take that unhinge all the way to impact and have good shaft lean and hit it really solid. But Eric, isn't that some kind of cast motion? Well, no, not if I pair it with flexion. If I go to the top and I completely unhinge my wrist, but then I bow it like a Dustin Johnson, how does that angle look? Let me do that again. Here's me at the top. Here's me completely unhinged. Now I'm just gonna go into flexion. Now that should look pretty darn good there, right? So the missing link there isn't necessarily adding hinge, it's an option, but it's probably adding flexion. And those two pieces work together. The more you want to have your left wrist toward bowed, if you're trying to do that in your swing, if you're trying to make your left wrist more flat anywhere, understand you probably also need to feel less hinge. If you're trying to get your more hinge here like this, you're probably gonna go a little more towards extension, okay? So that's something you have to factor in there. The last little piece that I wanna kind of make sense here, because we know our hands go up, they go down, they go back, they go forward. We know if we hinge up, we go towards cup, bad news. We know if we unhinge, we go towards flat, good news. Have to add bow with it. Grip is a real part of this conversation. And that is, the weaker my left hand grip is. So if I have my grip more over towards here, like a Matthew Wolff who just won, or like a Jordan Spieth or a Ben Hogan type player, the more I have this towards weak, the more I'm gonna probably need to go into a bow or flexion and probably have a little bit less hinge throughout. The stronger grip I have, the more turned, I'm probably gonna have a little bit more hinge and a little bit more cup, sort of a la older Rory McIlroy. So understand grip plays a role in that too. But those are the pieces, the main pieces I wanted to kind of get past you here is how the hinge rates affect everything. Again, at the end of the day, you're gonna wanna have checkpoints. Where am I trying to go at certain spots in the swing, and then correlating your feels to those things. So I can't say to you, hey, here's a drill, start doing this, feel no hinge, feel a lot of hinge. I can say to you, if I could see a video of your swing, here's what you're currently doing, here's why that's giving you your problems, here are the feels associated with it. But as you start to coach yourself, make the correlation between those two. If you're gonna do one, you have to do the other. Hopefully that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, as always, leave a comment down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching today's video. If you liked the video, please do us a favor, click the like button down below. Click the notification bell. Also, please subscribe if you haven't. Another reminder, every Monday we are here live at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Rapid Fire Golf. Would love to see you guys here.